Talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we are back with Megyn Kelly. We only have her for a few more minutes. She's got to run, but there's a story that she's been talking about that I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't bring up. And Megyn, you have gone completely viral for talking about this story, the Jezebel witch hex, where they paid a bunch of witches to put a hex on Charlie Kirk. As it turns out, this is one of the last stories, that are the last things that I ever talked to Charlie about. I know it was on his radar. You took that story a step further and even reported that this is something that greatly affected Erica, that they prayed over this, that they received a blessing over this, and that it really does kind of beg the question. And I applaud the fact that you were willing to use your platform to say this. We should talk about whether or not the demonic had some influence here.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even know anything about this. I actually learned about this from Erica. And, you know, she was so composed. Honestly, when I was talking to her, it was incredible because she could talk about anything. She was very measured. She was very present, unlike her game plan. But tears never stopped coming out of her eyes. You know, she's obviously distraught over Charlie's loss, but functioning, totally functioning. It was just sad, you know, deeply sad and appropriate. And in our long conversation, she gave me permission to share this because I asked for permission. She mentioned this to me, that they were scared by this report that the website Jezebel and this particular writer had gone to Etsy, and this is a thing, and paid money to have multiple curses cast against Charlie, calling for harm to him. Now, they included a paragraph in their article saying, well, we didn't ask for actual bodily harm, but we wanted something terrible to happen to him. You know, we wanted him to basically break out in acne or lose the ability to use his microphone or lose the ability to tweet somehow. You know, his thumbs would grow too big, that kind of thing. But it's so super humorous. We are calling for harm, but not like deathly harm. So that makes us good people. And they went to a so-called Etsy witch, which is a thing. They're all over, by the way, on Etsy. I thought this was a damn craft website. It's morphed into something very different. And they paid this so-called witch to curse or put a hex on Charlie. And they did this 18 days before Charlie died. And then they paid an additional $50 to amp up the hex and make it especially bad for him. And then they went back a third time and found a different so-called witch, some, quote, priestess, to cast an extra special curse on Charlie. And they had proof of this woman burning his picture and watching the edges crumble around his face as she cursed him. So now they had three, and they waited. And they expressed consternation that a day had passed and nothing happened. And then they found out from the alleged witches that it would take between 2 and 3 weeks. And literally 18 days later, Charlie was assassinated. But the day before he was assassinated, Erica and Charlie saw the story because Jezebel wrote it up the Monday before Charlie was killed, which was a Wednesday. So that Monday they saw it, and she in particular was so disturbed by it. And as any deep faith Christian might be, she was very unhappy this had been done. And they asked a friend of theirs, and I think Erica told me that it was a Catholic priest, but I can't totally remember, but it was a Catholic, just a friend of theirs. And they asked him for a blessing over Charlie the night before he was killed. And they received the blessing, and she felt better. But I just could not believe how vile this was. And when I talked to Erica, it was when I was out in Arizona. So this is a week plus after he was killed, and it was still bothering her, you know, to the point where she mentioned it to me. But she had come to a different place on it, Jack. And she was annoyed, of course, but she came to realize upon reflection, and she had gotten there even before Charlie left, that these people had no power over Charlie, that these demons, that Satan was not in control, that God was in control, including on the day Charlie was killed. But my own takeaway as a friend of hers and as a Christian was this was evil, what they did. This was an evil act. And I also happen to feel that there is a possibility they opened a very dark door. I don't know how things work. I'm Catholic. And Catholic priests, and I played the soundbite on my show, have come on, like Father Mike Schmitz, who I love, who does the Bible in a year. And he specifically told me 2 years ago, don't have a Ouija board in your home, and talked about how they believe that there have been actual exorcisms they've had to do, that the movie The Exorcist is based on a real 2 cases where a Ouija board opened some sort of portal or door into someone's house where they believe their child got possessed by a demon. He also said, don't do magic. Like, you're calling up things you might not want to call up in your home or in this world. So who are we to say as mere mortals that doing that kind of ritual is utterly powerless, is the joke that Jezebel seemed to think it was? I don't know that. I have no idea what doing that is capable of. I would certainly never, ever do that to my worst enemy. And so that's the reason I talked about it. And because whether it's
I
got any
amazing.
power or not, it upset Erica Kirk.
Well, I think it's amazing that you talked about it. As everyone knows, I always have my rosary right here, very handy. I've got crucifixes up in my bedroom and the bedrooms of my children, the same way that my parents had for me. We have holy water in the house. And I will add this. The only thing I'll add is this, is that you can invite the demonic onto yourself. And we certainly saw the Annunciation Church shooter up there and clearly wrestling with a demon. But those witches and that hex and the spell and all of the demons combined could not do what? They could not corrupt Charlie's immortal soul. So yes, they could have an agent of evil fire a bullet at Charlie, but the demonic is about dragging you down and damning you to hell and pulling you away from God, because that is what hell is, the total disconnection with God. But that wasn't Charlie. So no matter what they did to him, they were never able to sever that. And I know that that spell, that hex, could never break Charlie's bond with Christ.
Yeah, I mean, that's been so obvious in the reaction to his death and the people flocking to Christ by the millions.
No, it totally failed. Megyn, I know you got to run. We're up on a hard break. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you, seriously, for just telling the truth about what was going on there.
Anytime. Great to be with you, Jack.
God bless. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Jack Posobiec, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice.